Alright, what's up guys? It's Heat. Welcome to the third video in the Path of Exile How to Defense video series. In this video I'm going to talk about mitigation, avoid, the difference between the two, dodge, and evasion, the difference between the two. Alright, so we'll start out with mitigation. So I use that word a lot, and what does it actually mean? Well, what mitigation means is this. If something hits you for 1,000 damage, if you mitigate it, instead of taking 1 damage, when that damage hits your life pool, it will be something less than the initial hit. So 600, 800 as opposed to 1,000. That means you have mitigated that initial damage somehow. Okay, how do you do this? One is through armor. I've talked about that. The higher armor, you will mitigate more damage to an extent, which I've talked about. How much armor should you have? I think at minimum 10,000. Maybe you can get away with 7,000 for it to actually be effective. I would say on the upper side, no more than 30,000. Alright, so that's one way. Another way is through certain special mods in the game. So if we take a look at this chest piece right here that I have up, it's called Lightning Coil. And it has this mod right here that's called, says 30% of physical damage is taken at lightning damage. Now, why is this important, and why is it really powerful? Alright, here's why. Generally, it's really difficult to obtain 75% physical mitigation. Alright, that is really hard to do. Now, what this does is it actually takes 30% of physical attack. So let's say something attacks you for 1,000. 30% of that is 300. It'll take that 300 and it'll mitigate it by your elemental resistances, which is actually really easy to get up to 75%. So it mitigates 75% of that 30%, which is actually this is a really strong mechanic. It used to be 40%. They nerfed this chest piece. I still think it's OP. People are complaining about it, but it's still really strong, and it's another layer of mitigation. What else can you use? There's something in the game called Mind Over Matter. You can get this off the skill tree. It's south of the duelist start. Or you can get it off a unique chest piece called Cloak of Defiance. What does Mind Over Matter do? Well, simply, when you get hit, 30% of damage is taken from your mana before life. Any sort of damage. This includes spell, this includes physical. When you get hit, it's taken from your mana. So that is mitigation 30% right off the bat, free, with no armor required. This is really good. It's probably one of the strongest if your mana pool, if you have enough, a high enough mana pool to actually, support this mechanic. Alright, so what else? Alright, the other thing you can do is use something called Immortal Call. Now, what Immortal Call does is, if you have endurance charges and you use this, it makes your character invulnerable to physical damage. Alright, so usually people use this in a four-link setup like this. Cast on damage taken, Enduring Cry, Immortal Call, increased duration so that this stays up longer and you can be invulnerable to physical damage for a longer period of time. Now, this works really well against burst damage and successive hits. So it's like if something hits you like bam, 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 right? The initial hit will trigger this. You will have invulnerability for the next maybe 2 or 3 hits, depending on how long it lasts, depending on how many endurance charges you had. So you won't take the remaining of the damage. Now, the downside to this is you need that initial hit to trigger this mechanic. So if that initial hit is actually, like 20,000 damage, then you won't mitigate anything else because your character's going to be dead. But this is another option that you have. And one more option is just using endurance charges. So endurance charges, each endurance charge gives you 4% physical damage mitigation. You can get something like 7 of them, maybe more if you corrupt items. And have around 30% physical mitigation just from endurance charges. So that is mitigation. Now, what's the difference between mitigation and avoid? Well, mechanics like dodge, block, evade, those things avoid damage. So basically, nothing is mitigated, you take no damage, nothing goes to your life pool. It's just like completely, you know, tabula rasa. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. You don't take any damage. That's the difference between mitigation and avoid. Use mitigation wisely. I recommend at least one form of physical mitigation. It's really important for your character to survive and to prevent damage. All right, so so let's talk about evasion and dodge. All right, dodge. How do you get dodge? Well, you get it. There's a couple ways you can get it. You can get it off the tree from acrobatics, something called acrobatics. This is to the east of the rangers right here. Acrobatics. This only applies to physical attack. Okay, it doesn't apply to spell damage. However, if you continue and you pick up these passives and pick up phase acrobatics, there's a 30% chance to dodge spell damage. All right, so that will dodge spell damage. Now, here's how dodge works. Every attack is independently randomized for 30%. Every single attack, right? It's independent. It will be random every single time, 30% chance, or however much you have, right? If you have 40, if you have 50, whatever. Now this is capped at 75%. And all right, so yeah, so basically that's dodge. It's pretty simple. It's random. Every single hit is done independently, and that is dodge. Another way you can get dodge is through two unique items called Doreso's Defiance, which is a unique chess piece. I think it gives you like 4 or 6% dodge chance. Or you can get something called Dark Ray Vectors. They are boots, and they provide 2% dodge chance per every frenzy charge that you have. Alright, so that's how you get dodge. Alright, so what is the difference between dodge and evade? Alright, so here is how evade works. Here's how this mechanic works. Evade isn't completely random. So this is from my understanding from reading what the developers say and on the wiki and whatnot. So this is how it works. There's an arbitrary threshold that damage must cross before it actually counts as a hit. Alright, so let's take this for example, because this is pretty arbitrary. So let's say you have the threshold is 100 points. If something attacks you, and let's say that you have, for some reason you just have 20 points, right? You have 20 points, something attacks you for 50, well, it didn't reach 100, so it's going to miss. It's at 70. Let's say something attacks you for another 20, well, it's at 90. It's gonna miss again. Well, now let's say something attacks you for 50, it crosses 100, you subtract the rest, so you get hit, and then it's back to 40 or something like that. All right, so this isn't random. So enemies are guaranteed to miss and hit. And I think if you do the calculations, depending on your accuracy and depending on how much evasion you have, etc., it's really hard for something to successfully hit you like 2 or 3 times in a row because of this mechanic. It's almost like impossible. Like if you get hit twice, I don't think you can get hit a third time, something like that, right? So this isn't independent. So there's a formula where each hit is counted into this threshold. Once that numeric threshold is crossed, then you get hit. And you reset this counter every 6 seconds of not getting hit. So that is the difference between evasion and dodge. If that still doesn't make sense to you, post in the comments, and I'll try to clear it up by replying to it, by writing to it. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. Hope you learned something.